Evening, people. How are we all doing? I feel like I've been away for absolutely ages. No comments that I have, please, either. Yeah, good to be back. Good to be back at work properly as well, to be fair, and just back in the routine of life. Got to say, the jet setting lifestyle is not for me, although needs must at times. I just about got over my jet lag and straight, and I was flying again. And then, yeah, family holiday. I've been through that many different time zones. I'm not quite sure what day it is still, but yeah, very glad to be back here. Unfortunately, the dates all kind of clashed with the Thursdays quite a lot. So, yeah, made it a little bit difficult, and the team's been quite busy, but there we go. So, sort of bring you in on a few updates first, I think, worth doing. So, yeah, the first biggest one, obviously, you will notice it's Wednesday evening, where typically Chris and Joe have been doing a live sales event. Now, we've decided to kind of park those for the time being, because personally, I think there's just too much of it all going on everywhere. And yeah, to be honest with you, it's a lot of work that goes into them. And we've kind of just flipped it over to something a little bit more productive that can be there all the time. So for those of you guys that do tune in who are interested in seeing what we've got to offer up for sale, you can join our WhatsApp group over on our Facebook page. You'll find the links to it on various posts. If you get tuned into that, we're popping fish through. Oh, they got it all there, look. Hey, always one step in front of me. And yeah, so got it there. You can join the group. And let's say we're dropping stuff in there. I dropped a phenomenal Momentero Coaco in there today, including growing. And yeah, the bits just keep rumbling on and on and on. So yeah, there we go with that one. So Wednesday, we've decided to make this slot because in my diary, it works a little bit better as well. Evening, Crafty. How you doing, mate? Marcus, how you doing? Yeah, so we're going to put question time back to its Wednesday slot and this later one, 7 o'clock. Which, from having spoken to a few people, was a little bit more convenient. I think a lot more people are settled at home. So, and from now on, we will be back, yeah, once a week, 7 o'clock with the Q&A. So, there we go. And yes, Crafty, we are still selling through dealers. Always will be. So, yeah, the group's there to join folks. Like I say, it does all still go through the dealers in our network. So, yeah, there we have it. I hope all your ponds are doing all right. Obviously, I've come back. The weather was a little bit of a shock, to say the least, because Japan was pretty mild. Both times, obviously, I've come back one time and it was sort of summer temperature. Absolutely mental, 38, 40 degrees out there. And we even had a lot of days on the last trip. You probably saw that I took my lad Arthur with me as well. It was a really, really phenomenal experience having him there. Yeah, dreamy stuff that I'm sure we'll both remember forever. Absolutely loved it. And according to him, not the last trip. So apparently he needed to come every time I come. But had to curb that one a little bit, manage some expectations. But yeah, there we go, folks. So feel free while I'm nattering away to fire some questions through. Remember the format. I'll get to working with them as much as I can. And yeah, see what I've got here. I've actually made some notes down. I'll try to be prepared. I have got quite a few pictures and videos uploaded because I thought I'd do a little bit of topical discussion as well. Regards one, because quite a few fish have come up during the trip, and I start in conversation with a breeder. You find yourself, you know, using that word tatigoi a little bit in its correct context, and that's what I want to try and help you understand and get across a little bit more through a bit of conversation around it. Is the correct context for that word? Obviously, I've mentioned it a few times about it kind of being irrelevant, which I do kind of stand by. I think to most of you guys out there, it is an irrelevant word. But I again see dealers who have been out there posting, you know, £400 and £500 fish as tatigoi, wrongly so, really wrongly so. Whether it's a misunderstanding of the word, I don't know. But there is a part it plays, but truly understanding it, I'm going to get into that very shortly, to be honest. And then, yeah, so what else have we got? A few bits to run by Koi Wholesale wise. So already had a shipment in. There's quite a few more bits arriving. We've had a first batch of Tosai in, including the NND Tosai Koaku. You might have seen those in video. In the video we've dropped. There's going to be another one dropping, a couple actually, with the updates on them, because on the last trip I did get them selected or done, and they're now back in the UK. So 6 months old, up to 30 cm, absolutely bonkers. And I've mentioned a few times, this really is a lineage to watch. And a little bit later on, I'm going to share with you a fish of mine that I've got there, and why these NND Koaku are well worth paying attention to. And yeah, those fish themselves, very soon after you've seen the content, we'll be making an announcement on those and how you're actually going to be able to get your hands on one, which are going to be part of a grow out event at our facility. So you'll absolutely love to be a part of that. And there's not many of them, to be fair. So yeah, happy days. Yeah, that's about it, really. So I think we'll move on. Yeah, the topical debate first. So, I mean, feel free. We're going to be talking Tatigoi. Feel free if you've got anything based around that you'd like to know from your understanding of it. Fire it in, and we'll get to that, and I'll get to some of the other questions after. But yeah, the word itself. So I think the issue here is the context in which this is used a lot of the time. I've explained in the past about the two words, Tatigoi and Tatishta. So in that, you basically got the basic meaning of it to a breeder is Tatigoi, fish they're keeping for the future. Tatishta, the fish that they've got for sale that they're not keeping as Tatigoi. That's it in a nutshell. The issue is with that one, you can have a fish that's been Tatigoi, say this time of year, right up until April when they do a final selection. Then all of a sudden that fish becomes Tatishta because they decide not to put it in the mud pond. So you can see how that word can just flip in a second there, which is why you shouldn't really apply it in context really to fish you're looking at and purchasing. Now, in the context of how it's generally used from a marketing perspective, wrongly, is the word is applied to in more varieties that are kind of sumi based. So Showa, Shiro, Sori, things like that, for example. When the sumi is not developed and it's sat there under the skin or whatever it is, the pattern's not finished, it's often then used in that context as a fish that isn't finished. And that kind of loosely implies, but there's a big element of that missing in the level of fish we're talking about and it not being finished. And it's not just about colour being undeveloped. It applies to all elements of a fish and that fish for the future. And it really only applies to really special fish. That's the point of it. When it's used in the context of the conversations that I've been speaking about, I've been having with a breeder, it's in the context of right now, this fish is fucking awesome. Yeah, it's serious quality, but it's still Tatigoi, meaning it's still not done yet. It's got a long way to go and it is going to get better. We know it is. It's not a case of will this sooner develop, won't it develop? It's pretty much knowing, yeah, this fish needs time. It's all there and it's got to progress. That, like I say, that doesn't mean it's just got a load of underlying sumi that isn't developed yet. So I've got a few fish here to help point this out. I'm going to start with a really obvious one. Now, this is a Shiro Sori, an NND DK1 that they posted today. It is actually a fish I was aware of. And yeah, pretty special one, to be fair. I think one of the best they've produced to date. So show you that. That's a Nisai 52 cm female. Absolutely fucking spectacular. There's no other words for that fish. It is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. Ticks every box imaginable. The body volume, the body thread, there's bone structure, the pattern, the skin quality, absolutely everything. Now, that fish is not finished in the slightest. It's only 18 months old at the time this picture's taken. So the context here of, if you believe a Tatigoi is a fish that's got a load of underlying grey sumi and stuff like that, doesn't apply to a fish like this. But this is exactly the sort of fish that this context applies to. Because not only is that spectacular now, it is nowhere near at its best and probably won't actually be at its best until this fish is hitting 75, 80 cm. So I'm talking 4 to 5 years old. Because what I see in this fish is there's going to be pattern changes. But the sumi, although the sumi is good right now, the sumi is nowhere near finished. It's not all fully developed its thickness. You can see on the front edge that blue-grey patch. That's the sumi sashi on this fish. And that's going to take a lot of time for that to progress and develop. And that's basically, as the skin thickens, that's all going to tighten up, and that sumi is going to become thicker and glossier. The back edge, the key was going to tighten up a little bit more as well. And that sashi will eventually tighten, and that'll become the solid sumi at that point. There's going to be little areas more of sumi growth in the pattern as well, in little areas developing a bit more, especially on the head. You can see the memoir coming through underneath between the top and the bottom, that piece underlying the head. I mean, my God, with that developed and on a bigger head, on a bigger volume fish, that is just going to look absolutely nuts. So all these changes still to come on this, plus how that pattern's going to slightly shift and look different as the body gets bigger. And we know this is a fish. The lineage is capable. We've seen it. That's a fish that can do 75, 80 cm. So no problems or concerns there. That fish is really not truly going to look its best until it gets to that kind of size. Not even close. And that's the context in which that word is used. Yeah. Serious fish, but still got so much improvement to come before it's truly at its best. And it's got complete opposite to how a lot of people actually do use that word. So that to me was the best, I think, hopefully the best way of explaining that as I could, and hopefully give it some kind of context. If I get back to the pictures, I've got a few more bits. If I can just familiarize myself with what I was actually. Yeah, so here I've got another one. So a Kawasanki. Now, this is actually a fish I selected at Tosai. In this picture coming up, it's now Yonzai 70 cm. But still, again, when we talk to the breeder, still very much Tatigoi. It's still got a lot of improving. And it's showing that signs of improvement. So, again, in the context, it looks a pretty finished fish, but it's not. Nowhere near. The sumi, what's been happening with this one, because kind of as it grows, the sumi is progressing and coming up a bit more, but as it grows, the pattern's all pulling apart and getting a little bit thicker. The sumi is actually dropping into the space a little bit more. So even though it's growing in volume, the areas of sclerotia are becoming a bit bigger. Everything's just kind of changing and shifting with that extra body volume that comes and extra size that comes. So although it looks like there's nothing more to do, there's still a lot more to do. The sumi's actually still got to tighten and consolidate a little bit more, which it is actively doing year on year. And that's, again, the context here. A fish already of super high quality, but there's still more room for improvement and still not at its best. Not just a general run-of-the-mill fish, something already spectacular that's got that extra mile still to go. And we're very confident we know it will as well. It's not just a gamble. We know it's got a long way to go. Evening, Humber Koi, how you doing? I've actually got a video of that one as well to share with you, just in case you've not seen it already. And you really see the quality a bit more in it there. And it's really, and this is the thing with fish that are really, true Tatigoi in the truest sense. My God, they're a journey. You've got to have a real huge amount of patience with them because, 4 years old is still pretty immature for a fish that is truly a Tatigoi for the future. I realistically think 2 more years on this fish, it needs to get to about 80 cm, and then you'll see it truly at its best with that Sankey. And at that point, let's say you're going to be 6 years old, that's a hell of a lot of time invested in that to get it to that point. And so much that can go wrong in the meantime. And at that point then as well is when it's going to be its strongest, maybe from a show perspective. You can jump too early with that stuff. It's a hell of a journey, but what a fish that is. I'm even more happy with that one that I actually selected it as a Tosai, and it's already come that far because it always, even though it was a jumbo Tosai, it's always the hardest age to be selecting fish at, and it all actually go into plan. So yeah, that's that one. Let me know in the comments if the context of what I'm trying to say is actually coming across properly, and you're getting the gist of where I'm heading with that one. So right, Let's have a look. Yeah, this one again. I mean, this is a Dainichi Toyota Kohaku from the Kinsen line that I selected. I got this out of the auction at Nissan, and nobody had really paid attention to it. God knows how. Still went for a pretty decent sum, but not the kind of money that they generally tend to go for as 5-star fish. And yeah, with this one, it was more the bone structure because it was a 60 cm Nisai, if I remember right. As of this picture, this is a 75 cm Yonsai now, and really just only starting to come into its own. And it was more with the body with this one, was that Tatigoi element. And Dainichi fish generally are not at their strongest through 2 and 3 years old. It's when they start hitting the peak, because that's when the body characteristics come alive, and the body plays such a huge impact in how a lot of the patterns look, and the quality is just coming to fruition, and all the rest of it. So with this one, it was quite a slinky looking Nisai. Although it was 60 cm, there was quite a strong taper, but this huge head and bone structure cell, which is why I got it, because I know with that setup, that's the kind of fish that can rally on to 90 cm. Now, its yearly growth this year has not been that big, but it's been quite a difficult and challenging summer in Japan, so it was kind of to be expected. But I'm not worried about that. This is a fish, and with the genetic capability and that bone structure capability, that can grow to 90 cm. And right there is your Tatigoi element, because truly, I don't think this fish is coming alive now, but as it hits 80 and above, what's happened this year more than anything, the face has come alive. I think most of you have noticed that. The face style, which is a word we've dropped just recently, otafuku, which is the name. It's basically like a Japanese, it's the name for like a mask, a style of face on a Japanese doll or whatever it was, with the chubby cheeks and that kind of, cute chubby face, which is definitely happening. And that just adds so much character and impact to everything. I'll show you a video of this, because this is when you truly get to see the impact of it. Look, it is an absolute battleship. And that's just at 75 now. As we look on that, the sashi is really starting to come to fruition now, to be fair, which is nice. And I'd expect, because it was pretty tight anyway, but we can see the Benny's still got legs in it. There's still a lot more to come from that Benny as well at the minute. I'll just play that again. Just insane. So again, I think we're 2 years away from really seeing this fish at its peak, surpassing 80 cm. Because what happens as well is this is when the body volume really starts lumping on. As that annual growth slows down, the body starts lumping on. And what happens is that last third of the fish, which was the slinky a bit as a Nisai, that's when the fat really starts developing there as well, and kind of leveling the body out more. And yeah, she's just exceptional, absolutely exceptional. And yeah, but again, there you see, it's already a serious fish. It was a serious fish at Nissan, but it was just very raw around the edges. At Sanzai, it come alive. It's coming alive more now. It will next year and the year after, absolutely for sure. That is the context of this word, not a shower that's got a bit of sumi underlying that a breeder's just let off for export. That's where that at. Now, this one I'm about to show you, very few people have actually seen this fish. This truly is one of my personal collection. This is a fish I'm on the journey for a long time. I will not sell it, absolutely not sell it. And it's one, again, I've selected at Tosai out the auction that I believe was massively overlooked from the Black Lisa line at Dainichi Toyota, which has proved to be a cracker growth-wise. Now, let me get it up for you. This is an interesting journey, and probably I'd be interested to see some of your observations. So, yeah, bought that. Now, the biggest thing with this straight away on the right side is that fish now at Sansai, 70 cm already, 2.5 years old. Bonkers. On the left picture, it's cut off. I believe that was either 24 or 26 cm as a Tosai. So it's gone from that to 70 cm in just 2 growing seasons. That's it. 2 growing seasons. It's bonkers. which tells me everything I need to know. But the biggest thing here, regardless of all its other qualities, what I fell in love with on that toe side picture there was that body line. Yeah, just look at that head. That is absolutely textbook, that head. But what you're noticing here, and the whole bone structure, and when I talk about it, this is what you see in this, that bone structure actually hasn't changed. Look, it's exactly the same proportions and shapes. It's just getting fatter and bulkier, which is exactly what we want. There is no chance of ever making this fish fat with that body line. It's just going to get huge. This again here is another 90 cm shower in the making. And again, why that word and that context applies now. One of the bit that has happened here, which is normal given the growth rate that it's had, especially, is you'll actually notice there's actually a little bit less sumi. It's not as thick now as it was as tosai. And that's normal for it to take a dip back down. And certainly while there's this exceptional growth going on as well, it really does take a lot. But time is going to be the friend for this one. And we know that's all it needs. I'm confident the sumi will come back up. You can actually see where it's reforming now. It's actually reforming of a higher quality, which is what happens. That baby sumi on that toe side is gone. The real stuff's starting to come through. But this is the hard bit in the context to get. It's 70 cm. You know, it's a big fish, but it's only 2.5 years old. It's young. There's 4 years ahead of this really before completion. You know, 6-7 year old fish is where it needs to be. And that at that point is what I'm expecting. So now over winter, there'll be progression again. That sumi will consolidate in the concrete pond, but it's all there. It's all going to happen. I'm not worried about that. You know, I can see the Benny's got longevity in it, but again, even the pattern elements are not really going to come alive till this fish is 80 and above. That right there is the true meaning of a tatigoi. You know, that journey that's going to be on, like I say, 6, 7, maybe even 8 years old before it peaks and hits that size. But it's also then got the quality just to keep improving and keep getting better, which is really, really important in the context of that word as well. You know, you don't have tatigoi that are finished at 2 years old. That's just not how that game works. So yeah, first time really sharing that one with you guys, but that is truly a personal fish that I'm on the journey in for the long run and cannot wait to see it come to fruition one day. But certainly an exciting journey to be on. And just to end that, kind of hats off to Hiroshi at Dainichi Toyota. He's done a phenomenal job for me. I've got a lot of fish there of my own, of clients as well. And his keeping has just been exceptional. The results are so good. I'm really getting familiar with his parent sets now, and there's a lot of predictability and reliability in him. And he certainly puts a lot of knowledge into a lot of explanation. Happy to share about his parent fish. It's all out there so we can learn about them origins and get to know what's coming from his fish. So if you're not friends with him on Facebook, look up Hiroshi Mano, because that's the guy, and he's constantly sharing pictures of development of his fish from all his lineages. So he'll give you a real idea, but they're all journey fish, you know, 4 years old, bare minimum, before you're looking at anything like getting close to the finished item. And then just one more, folks, which you might well have seen this one, because I have been sharing it about. If not, this one is actually going to be, I believe, tomorrow at 7 p.m. We're dropping the video from the last trip of the NND Champion Mud Pond Harvest, where I've had my special koaku that I've got there, which is a fish I'm hoping is going to be a GC contender for a certain show one day. And yeah, got to harvest it, which was pretty cool. I don't think I've shared this too much other than this autumn, to be fair. And yeah, let's start with the picture. Again, this don't really give the perspective on this because it's a pretty shit picture. But this fish I obtained last year at Sansai, sorry, 67 cm it was. So reached 73 this year. I was expecting 75. But again, the summer, everything taken into consideration, I'll take that. But doesn't mean, you have a good summer next year. It can likely catch up that 2 cm and do the growth it's going to do that summer as well. But this is very much a fish that is, again, not going to start. It's starting to come alive this year for sure, because we're just seeing that body progression. And it's that body progression that's going to make the subtle shifts in the pattern, which are going to be really, really important. The thickness of the Benny coming through as well, which is going to be really, really important. Progression of Fukarin, which only happens at a certain size and age at a true level. And then, yeah, what's happening with the face as well. You don't see it so much in here, but again, those otofuku characteristics developing in the face, which if I can get this video, again, it's not the best of videos, but it will give you an idea. More of the sort of size and context of the beast. We can really see around the nostrils of the fish. It's getting those kind of creases in there, which is that big gnarly face characteristic. But when you look at the backbone of the fish particularly, that's your indicator that there's so much more to come. I mean, the fish is solid. You look at the body line, there's not a nip, tuck, bulge anywhere. It is just solid. That's how I know with that backbone, it's a fish capable of carrying the weight. Genetically, they can get the size. That fish itself has got the characteristics to carry the weight for sure. You know, the sash is really starting to come along now and progress as well. But again, this is the context of that word when we're all there discussing it, and it's like, yeah, good tatigoi. There was fish come out of the pond way more striking, you know, a little bit bigger, some a little bit older in truth, but some with flashier patterns as well that were right at that moment were far more better looking and more appealing fish. But this is the one we know you've just got to be patient, possibly even 3 more years from now before we're really talking the real context of where it's going to be. Hopefully next year can reach to 80. That'll make a massive difference. And that from there on in, we'd hope to think maybe that next year, if it does that, can go towards 83, 85. But certainly within the next 2 years, it'd be nice to hit that 83, 85 mark. Then we're really on to seeing where that fish is at. So yeah, I hope that's useful for you. And I think them pictures kind of really did help explain that. But as you can see, I've not used the context of that word there on anything that's not already bloody exceptional and really truly top end fish as well, to be honest. So yeah, that's tatigoi for you. Like I say, not just a scabby little 2-year-old fish that's got no sumi and it's waiting to come through. And to be fair, it's not just dealers who are at fault for abusing this word. Breeders do it a little bit too much as well. And it'll just be daft comments that get taken out of concept, like, oh, that could be good enough to be tatigoi, that one. Boom, there we go. That's almost like the, you know, permission there for the dealer to go exploiting that word because it's come out of the breeder's mouth. And, you know, they know they've usually wrong it because it never was. But yeah, it's a process, folks, and those fish that are truly, you know, deemed as that are a process as well. You've got to be in it for the long haul, and that's just hopefully something you can take there, that even fish that aren't at that level still need time. And this is something I see too much, sort of like a throwaway disposable market, and it has become a little bit of culture, I think, in England, not just in koi, in everything. But my God, you know, patience is needed. And koi can have a bad year as well, you know, some year where they go a little bit backwards, and then hopefully you can pull it, you know, back at some point. But you've got to be on that journey with it. You let it go, and I've seen it all the time with fish, you know, hobbyists letting them go too quickly to another hobbyist, and then they give it the time or some different conditions or even better keeping, and all of a sudden it comes to fruition. So yeah, hope you found that useful. And I say, look out for that video tomorrow night. I think it's premiering at 7 p.m. and it is a bit of a cracker. That is a stunning pond at NND, and there was some epic fish come out. And yeah, AJ was there, obviously in his element again, which was pretty cool. Right, I'm gonna have a quick drink, and then yeah, I'll get on with some of your questions, folks. Just bear with me a moment. There's a good one. This is going to take me a minute as well. Ricky, what is your favorite fish you bought while out in Japan, and is it for sale? Right, so yeah, I did well again, folks, because obviously I weren't buying anything, and you probably know how that story ends. But to narrow it down to one favorite would be pretty difficult, to be honest. And I'm not prepared with any pictures, although if you do give me a minute, I'll have a quick fettle through. But yeah, I mean, it's not stopped since, because there's always stuff going on. But let me have a look. Oh yeah, actually, this is one I've not shared. This one I'm gonna, because again, it's the journey. You know, that's a big part really for me. The experience you sort of go on with some fish as well, and a little breeder called Kanske. Now this guy is just remarkable. He really is. But he's old school. You know, the guy's 70 odd years old, right up in the mountains. Doesn't get mass amounts of foreign visitors. Speaks not a single word of English, which makes it more limiting. And I've always gone with him because that guy just loves it as much as I do, and I think we're connected in that way. But people misunderstand his fish because in this eye there, he'll still be 40-ish cm, 45 top end, never any bigger than that. But that's come from a toe side that was probably 20 cm going into a mud pond. So it's had a serious growth spurt. But the best bit, the magic of these really comes alive when they hit Sansai. All of a sudden you go from these, you know, Nisai that are kind of the size of a jumbo tosai at some ponds to all of a sudden these Sansai at 55 ish cm, 55, 58, you know, around them figures with this whopping bodies. And you see the fish in the two ponds there, Nisai, Sansai, and you look and just go, no, that's just not right. They're not grown. All the raising is done in mud ponds. They're not being raised while they're in the fish houses. It's all done in that 5-ish months to get in the mud pond, and it's bonkers. And then they just kind of go on from there. And every year I'm lucky because he will sell me his best fish. I don't have to push hard. I just have to pay the price that he's willing to quote. And yeah, sure enough, and as it often happens, last year it happened because I pulled a fish up. We both unanimously agree. Or he was like, yep, that's the Kashira. It's absolutely best fish in there. And I was looking and looking, and the price he gave me kind of rocked me a little bit. So I was like, oof. And I was scrutinizing it, looking, just thinking, and I'd convinced myself, right, go on, we're going to do it. And just as I was about to shake his hand, I had a look and I'd completely missed that the tail fin wasn't sat in the peduncle properly. It was bent over. And then I had the horrible job of having to tell him that that was the case as well. So, and as I did, I saw the kind of look on his face. He was gutted. It was as gutted as I was, to be fair. He did still keep it, in all fairness. And even at the time, he was explaining to me, as that fish was, it would probably still actually compete in one of the local Japanese koi shows, which is bonkers. It's so attuned to the focus of quality they are that sometimes things like that will get overlooked. But nonetheless, he kept it, grew it. And the first thing I did when he walked in Fish House, he went, yeah, Kwaku was even worse this year. It had really bent over. So fuming with that one, fuming. But anyway, back in that pond this year, and it's nice to see he's been having a play with Ginrin Kohaku, and Ginrin Show has been doing for a bit, which I really like. But Kohaku numbers were really down. He had a problem with those tosai. They really weren't as much as there normally was, but just this one stood out. And let me, I'm going to have to show you it on the screen, but I think you can get the gist of that. That was the fish that I bagged out of there. Now already does look incredibly impressive, but that's only 40, I think about 42 cm on there. So you imagine, you know, when you've seen how these pop from Nisai to Sansai, I'm just picturing what this is going to look like when I walk in that fish house next autumn. So it's probably one of the most exciting ones and one I'm most keen about, and the journey it's going to go on. And I was even lucky to get a nice deal done with some other stuff that'll be coming through hopefully in the spring. So yeah, great place. But I just love being up there and interacting with him. You know, he's constantly telling me about new parent fish he's got, loves to show them off, what he's been doing. Just a nice, amazing experience. But that with the fish, you know, the emphasis is there all on quality. It's not an emphasis on 90 cm plus fish, just quality. And his lineage really packs a punch in that respect. So yeah, nice question, mate. Nice question. Let's have a look. Michael, any updates on the Jumbo Tosai Festival grow on? Yes, there are. We harvested. I've pretty much finished sorting all those ponds now. So we're going to get them photographed, sent out, and shipping to be arranged on all those. All right, let's have a look. Kelly, hi, I've just bought a Kwaku from Hoshikin and the Benny has gone a bit orange. Will it get red again with colour food, or is it likely to stay orange? Kelly, I need a bit more information on that. So, I mean, how have you been keeping it? Has it gone orange while it's been in your pond? What kind of age is it? Yeah, how are you keeping them? Have you got a lot of daylight? Obviously, there's not as much daylight in the country, full stop, at the minute, but is there any covers around the pond, polycarbonate, anything like that that might have an impact? Probably need a bit more information because, yeah, ultimately it might be that it's not had any colour food for a long time and the colour's just softened up a bit. Is it in warm water? Are you trying to grow it? Loads of variables there that might have softened up the colour. So, yeah, a bit more information would be appreciated to give a detailed answer on that one. Cyril, I run upon 25, 26. What would you run for rest period, temper time? Yeah, so again, it depends what you're doing, Cyril. I think to me, kind of 12 degrees is a really nice winter temperature. If you can keep that there, you'll keep loads of activity in the fish. Nothing will get too cold. It would be the spot on kind of temperature range, unless you're trying to keep a bit of growth ticking over and get a bit more food down. And then I'd probably look at 18, which is a really nice conditioning temperature as well. But you will still need to keep a decent level of food in there at 18 to maintain the body mass. At 12, you can really kind of stop worrying about feeding and just keep it bare minimum, because they're not just going to be burning off the fat as quickly as they would be at 18 or above. Paul, good evening. Hi, Ricky. With the yen exchange rate as low as it's been for the last 5 years, is it helping with purchase and shipping prices in Japan? Yeah, it's actually really good news because, you know, despite rising costs everywhere, now there's more airlines flying to Japan because it's fully open. There's absolutely no restrictions, face masks, anything like that anymore. So with more flights, ultimately becomes more capacity for shipping, which has ultimately meant air freight prices have dipped, which is good. To be honest, for fish you guys are looking at, your air freight makes very, very little difference unless you're shipping home some big heavy boxes and big fish. So yeah, on the average purchases in koi shops, it makes a small amount of difference. When we've got shipments that are working in tonnage, makes a huge difference. So just to that initial cash outlay that we've got. Exchange rates again, yeah, making a vast difference. The pound's really strengthening against the yen, which is awesome. So yeah, all this just helping counteracting some of the other rising costs, because we can't forget about all those folks. So yeah, ultimately, although it is helping, people are still suffering from price rises over here in the UK and costs that have been heavy hitting. So, what I actually translate through to you guys, again, I think is bare minimal because of the kind of values of most purchases and the impact it actually has on those single fish. But in the big batches, it makes a big difference. And if that can help the koi dealers out, then I'm all for that, because that stuff is just so important. It's been hard, with all the rising costs over here, utilities, all the rest of it, freight rates as they have been, yen been pretty shit as well. All that just made life so hard. So to have a bit of relief is pretty nice, to be honest. But we have seen, rising prices at a few breeders this year as well. Not many have changed it, but just a few, because there's also been a slight change in their taxation system over there, which has hit some of the smaller breeders a bit more. But, the breeders, to be fair, they barely changed prices for 10, 20 years, some of them. So to get a little bit now, you can't really knock them for, to be honest. Right, let's have a look. Tamasaba, is venting the only way to sex them? No, it's not. So the same as with the koi. Try and obviously with the males get some sperm out of the vent, but you also can check for the oiboshi around the gill and the front ray of the fin, which will be present in the males as well. So yeah, and then obviously checking the vent, and the shape's often quite different between the males and females as well. Certainly from Nisai onwards, they tend to egg up quite a bit with the females, and you can even feel that egg in them, in truth. Parent, evening, Ricky. Watching you talking to breeders in Japanese, do you find it easy to communicate to the breeders speaking the language? Yeah, so this is something, I mean, you won't have you a lot of seeing. It's to me, I still don't do it very well, but I get on better than I think, to be fair. And yeah, it's just something I've been working on more and more and more. I find that, when I'm in Japan, I do everything myself. So, and being in that situation just it puts you in scenarios where I found it easier to pick the language up being immersed in it. I've had a few lessons here and there, bits and bobs, but a lot of the learning has been coming from just throwing yourself in at the deep end and getting it. But yeah, breeders certainly do respond to it. And it allows me just to go to a lot more of them places that, foreigners typically might avoid unless they've got help because the communication is difficult. And don't get me wrong, make a few mistakes along the way, but you've got to try and you've got to learn the hard way, as I always have done with stuff. So yeah, it's good. And I certainly do find they interact, they open up on quite a different level, to be honest. So yeah, it's you get a bit of respect for it, which is nice. And I just keep continuing to learn what I can with that one. Hi, Ricky. Are you able to recommend dealers outside the UK? I'm based in South Africa. I know it's a long shot. Yeah, Steve, sorry, I've got no idea what's going on in the scene out there. So it would be a pretty shit recommendation coming from me, to be honest, mate. So sorry, I can't add much value to that one. Anybody else watching, if you're from South Africa and you know of anybody, feel free to drop that in the comments to help out. So, Craig, hi Ricky. Thank the lads last week for all your help and advice through Koi Talk as a newbie to the hobby. Just received my goshki from you guys today. Very impressed with it. Very good to hear, Craig. And yeah, I'm glad that you're finding it useful because, to be honest, the whole kind of thing of doing this and Koi Talk and everything was to help people, as like yourself, more than anybody in all reality, because as far as I see it, the hobby needs new blood coming in all the time. And it's important that new blood is nurtured and looked after for as much as possible and given the right advice in order to succeed in the hobby. So, you were the inspiration really for all that stuff. So, yeah, I'm glad to know that you're finding that useful, and thank you for your feedback. Lee, good evening. Hi, Ricky. Another food question for you. Having watched some videos lately and seeing what breeders feed, would it be fair to say that some breeders just big up a food, i.e. give it some publicity, or would they feed it to lesser quality stock? So Breeder X does indeed feed the food, but not on high quality stock. Yeah, I have mentioned this before, and I need to finish this drink. My throat's drying up, somewhat chronic. As the wife would say, I don't speak this much to her in a week. Never mind in an hour. So yeah, absolutely. They're a bit of a sellout at times. I see the whole thing where they literally, product placement, for some reason they're happy for somebody literally to shove a product in their hand and take a picture with their arm around them like that, all smiling and all happy. I don't know what that's all about. It might be to do with the politeness in Japanese culture, to be fair, whereas I just happily tell them to fuck off because I'm having no to do with it. It's not really in their nature. And yeah, so yeah, that's where I'd say with that one. It is okay. A lot of breeders do invest heavily in food. It depends where it is. So in concrete ponds, they'll see something as sake kari as more of a wise investment because of how they can maintain the system, such as myself with those higher stocking densities and the need to really look after that water. That's something that'll be a heavily invested decision where that's not quite as important in a mud pond. But yeah, throughout it, but there are unfortunately others, even at the point where you'll see them promoting one brand and they do truly use another. I see a lot of JPD advertising done around, and when you actually look in the food bins, they've got Ikari. It's the Japanese. It's the way it all is. I never really pay any attention to that stuff, and it's not. It's more trial and error with the products and learning yourself what seems to work and have the impact. So yeah, when you see one of them pictures, just ignore it. Evening, Ricky. Any updates on the new pond you're planning at Koi Wholesale? Did you decide on filtration? Loved all the Japan videos, by the way. Cheers. Thank you. Yeah, getting there. God, there's just too much going on all the time. This is going to drag on for years if I'm not careful. But yeah, getting closer on the filtration. I actually had a meeting with Oaza this week, which was quite nice. I do solely use Oaza pumps across the whole Koi Wholesale site, apart from 4 shower pumps, which are imminently getting replaced. I've got actually one of the real pro level Aquamax pumps coming hopefully next week to put on there. And yeah, them guys are actually coming back because there's a new Aquamax app coming out apparently, which is giving better performance and a 25% saving on power consumption, which maybe for you with one pond's not that big of a deal. but me with 60 pumps wired in could be absolutely huge. So what we're actually planning on doing is they're going to come back and hopefully do some testing to show me how the performance might rank against these other pumps that are used, just to really demonstrate the extent of the savings on this and the performance you get as well. Because it's not like with them, you get the lower consumption, a drop off in performance, top end performance, and the lowest end power. They're brilliant products and super reliable, and the only pump, say, bar these others I did choose, which is quickly going to get undone because they've proved themselves to be unreliable already. But the main system pumps are all Oasa. So yeah, we was having a chat while he was there about the projects and, you know, what pumps we might be using and stuff on that. So it's coming together, but we're full on now. Been harvesting, trying to get ponds sorted before it gets too cold outside. Got a limited amount of time to get fish settled into those ponds safely, and then getting on inside for other fish coming in. And yeah, it's just non-stop. So fingers crossed, it might end up actually being something we have to outsource, you know, the main bulk of that stuff too, to actually get cracking on it. But I'm getting closer to making some decisions. That's interesting. You hear a lot saying the fish is unfinished or finished. When do you know when a fish is finished? And is there an age when a fish is finished? Yeah, the age is going to depend on so much, really. Again, bloodline, how it's been kept, loads and loads of different things. Size can play a part in it as well. But yeah, finished really is when there's no more quality to eke out of the fish. So when it's at a point of being finished, there is ultimately only one way it can go. And that'll mean that the Benny, you know, that the pigmentation in the cells is fully spent, it's fully spread. And at that point, all it can do at some point is actually going downhill and deteriorating. Also, like with Sumi is, you know, it can come and peak and flourish at some point in some bloodlines. And that's it. When it starts going the other way, it's never going to come back again. That's why with shoal, it's so hard to get them, the ones that hit the peak, ready for a koi show, because, you know, you might get the Sumi at a point in its life where it's finished and the Benny's not, and bringing it all together one time, honestly, it's a minefield. But yeah, unfinished generally is when you've got pigmentation in the Benny that needs to progress, and Sumi that, you know, isn't spent and still needs to come up and develop, and those kind of criterias. Whereas finished, everything is done. There is no more quality to extract, and like I say, there is only one point for it to go. But let's say when that's going to happen is going to depend on the quality and so many other things. A fish can be finished at a year old, as in finished. There is no way for it to go other than downhill. Those type of fish, when you try to grow them intensively, the Benny will just fall apart because there's nothing in there to give anymore. So yeah, quite a multi-layered question, that one, but I hope that explanation helps out with that. Sam, hi Ricky, what would your advice be for selecting an Akamatsuba looking to purchase 30 to 40 cm? What should I look at, plus what characteristics of this age? Hoping for deep red body and nice black fukurin. And right there would be your mistake, Sam, at 30 to 40 cm. So I'll get my sales pitch in here. These, I mean, Akamatsuba always seems to be great demand for. We have got a couple coming up in the WhatsApp group, I'm sure. Don't hold me to that. Chris has got lined up that were pulled out of a pond the other day. But yeah, breeder. So this is going to be sort of preference on the farm. I'm going to go straight to Otsuka because Otsuka's lineage is Akamatsuba derives from that Asagi line. So they have his characteristics in the body shape and the face. The face is just awesome in them. So yeah, that would be where I'd head. Plus, you know, the Benny level on them gets exceptional. But at 30 to 40 cm, you're going to be looking at a Nisai fish. Right there, you don't want to be focusing on it being too deep red or the fukurin, especially the fukurin being too black, because they naturally darken with age. And this is this mistake a lot of people make with the Sagi as well, that when they darken, when you get it too dark, too young, by the time it's 3-4 years old, it looks like a bag of shit and you want to get rid of it. So the lighter, the better. And that can even be in the color as well. There'll be a certain expectation, but if you don't expect the deep, luminous, glowing red at 2 years old, that's going to come more at 3 and 4. years old. So really a little bit softer in coloration and a little bit lighter with the Mitsubamon as well is where you want to be at this kind of age and size with the Mitsuba. And I say look out for an Otsuka one because those really do rock. They're impressive. Hoshikoi UK. At what age do koi stop sumi development? Can it come and go all their life? No. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, as they get older, if it goes, the chances of it coming back are a lot slimmer. So, Tosai to Nisai, you can really expect it to fall off. What you really want to hope for then is a steady development through from Nisai onwards of it coming back at a higher quality level. The only real lineage I see this in is like in a show or something. If it drops off at 4 or 5 years old, the likelihood of it coming back is really, really slim in all reality, depending on the bloodline and the sumi type and what's caused it. But I've seen this happen a lot. Stress events can trigger sumi loss as well, and yeah, just never coming back. It's a shame. Not to say never, but it's slim chances. And the only kind of fish I've seen this in, Omasako, some lineages of Omasako Shiros can be super volatile like this. 4 years old, 5 years old, all of a sudden the sumi vanishes. Some can come back, some don't. It's a pretty unique lineage in that respect in some of the stuff that goes off with sumi. But yeah, ultimately, the main sumi loss where I have no worry is Tosai to Nisai. But beyond that point, it can get a little bit scary if you've got it nicely developed at 3, 4 years old and it vanishes. I think you're going to struggle with that one. Do you analyze human bodies like you do koi bodies? No comment. Humber Koi. Question. I'm saving for a koi for my 40th just after Christmas. I really enjoyed watching your videos around Sakai, Dragon Ball, Sankey, Bloodline. How you rate this compared to others like NND, etc. Oh, so here we go. I'm not going to rate them because I don't think that's fair, but this is what I love about all the different lineages. They all offer something so different. Now, if it comes to it, you just happen to choose 2 there, which NND Sankey and the Marusho Sankey NND has a place in my heart, has done. It's one of the lineages I understand more than any other. And it's, they're fascinating. They're so reliable as well in what they do. I've had 20 years plus of experience in dealing with them. I currently have a sensational one that's soon going to get measured and photographed up at Koi Wholesale, which is going to be somewhere between 75 and 80 cm when we actually harvest it and check up on it. It's superb. So if you say that and you want it to be something special that can be a true journey, I've been blown away by the Sakai Dragon Ball this year, and Sakai Sankey in general are phenomenal. But I do love NND Sankey, and what you'll probably find with them is you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck with the NND side over the Sakai as well, in all truth. But yeah, I love Marusho. I can just show you countless examples of them where they just excel, and it's been the fish I was looking out for the most at that farm constantly. And for that one I know, because they've got the capability. They've had, I think, 4 or 5 fish now grow to the meter mark, Sankey, some beyond it. Just phenomenal. And I've watched that whole journey progress, from back in 2017 when they introduced Sakai female into that lineage for the first time, and it just changed everything, and seen the results from there. So yeah, I would actually sway in that case the NND one, and depending on what level it's at, I don't know if it's a fish you're looking for over here or keep in Japan or anything like that, but NND is just an amazing farm to deal with. I still don't think they get the credit and recognition they deserve overall as a farm for what they produce, to be honest with you. But anybody who ever visits there is not anything other than blown away with what they see. And they're doing it across a lot of stuff, all 3 Go Sankey doing really, really well at, and the Shiro Sori on top, the 4 most prestigious varieties in koi. They're doing all that as one operation and doing it to some level. So kind of hats off to them in that respect. But yeah, that's no slight on the Dragon Balls. You're going to start seeing more and more of the top examples I've got of them coming through as well. And like I say, we know Sakai Sankey are a dominant force, but there's all these lineages offer something different. Like I say, NND Marusho Sankey have a special place for me, and they are exceptional. So I think in this case, because it is something special, that's probably the route I'd go down, because I just know it's going to be a reliable and enjoyable journey for you, providing you get the right fish. So feel free to reach out on that one. And yeah, I can certainly advise well on either side there for you, but certainly on the NND stuff. Richard, good evening. Rick, I bought a Kohaku from Coda earlier in the year. It's now Nisai and its shoulders have really grown into a large hump, for want of a better word. Is it a sign of a grower or a bad body line? No, not all. Providing the body itself isn't too short, then yeah, powerful shoulders are a good thing. You know, you want a strong, heavy shoulder there. Backbone, it's a particular style of body as well. Not all lineages get it, but yeah, a good sign, Richard, so long as the rest of the body's, you know, not too short. Okay, just coming back to the Oshkin phone. Yeah, I only just bought it and was kept inside and dark. Then there's your problem. So really the biggest thing, it's not necessarily color food with this one. You need to expose it to UV daylight. That's what the fish needs to help that color really progress further. So I hope that helps you, Kelly. Evening, Rick. What's your best advice on the use of air in your pond over winter, not heated or 12C maintained? So yeah, you don't really need it at a certain point. If you're not massively densely stocked, as it gets really cold, I mean, an oxygen test will help with that, but there's just not need. You need to be aerating your filters still, and that'll be adding sufficient enough aeration generally in a pond that's not massively heavily stocked or fed at this point. That you could probably get away with running it. And if, again, depending on whether you're covered or not or what's going on, it can just help, obviously, you know, try and stop dragging so much cold water up from the bottom, and obviously creating all the disturbance in there, which they won't appreciate when it's cooler anyway. But at 12, I would say really dependent on your stocking level. Going sort of sub 10, 8 around them degrees, as it's most of the time it's not essential, because you will and should be aerating your filter anyway, which again will should be more than sufficient in most cases. Dan, can you tell me about the Matsunoski bloodline? Don't see many people visiting on YouTube. Yeah, I think that's for good reason, Dan, to be honest with you, because it's really the Matsunoski farm itself, I think, fell well behind and massively outdated. If we just look, the body hasn't developed. You know, we've gone from the dominant force, and don't get me wrong, Matsunoski just plays such a huge part in Sankey. There's not many Sankey in existence today that can't trace their origins back to Matsunoski in some way, such as thing. But the lineages have just developed. You remember, those genes are way back in the creation of a lot of the modern day bloodlines, which have developed along there. And obviously, Sakai's become the dominant force. Excuse me. And then body styles have changed completely. You know, the very elongate Matsunoski body form, more slender, that submarine style, used to be all the rage. Now it's all shoulder power and absolute tanks. So, you know, Matsunoski deliver on the growth. They just don't deliver on that style of body, unfortunately. They deliver on quality, but they don't deliver, in my opinion, on the patterns. And this is why we don't see Matsunoski fish generally winning major prizes at major koi shows. They can't compete on the body front or the pattern front. But as far as quality goes, absolutely dripping in it. I think, you know, probably the most popular Matsunoski strain that you will see visiting is Shintaro, because Shintaro pretty much carries a pure line of Matsunoski. He's probably the one that's done the most work on it over the years, but those body characteristics are still there. Probably on the pattern front, he does better than Matsunoski does these days, in all honesty. But yeah, that body element, if it's not for you, and you prefer that more powerful one, it's just become outdated, unfortunately. And I think that's why you don't see people visiting, because ultimately for dealers, they need to be able to sell those fish, and they're not very attractive fish to sell either, which is a problem. And a lot of the whole Matsunoski thing is about longevity of quality. And that's hence why it was so popular as a parent fish and lineage choice. So that longevity of quality is there in it, but you're talking journey fish that can be 8, 9, 10 years old before they start coming to fruition. And that's just not the way it's working. You know, you've got fish winning Grand Champion awards now at 6, 7, and 8 years old. So, yeah, it's just our times have changed, unfortunately, and that lineage hasn't changed with everything. But in the history of koi, the most important bloodline in Sankey, bar none. So, yeah, hope that goes a bit the way you're explaining on that one. Right, last question, because I am absolutely zonked out with that, to be fair. And here we go, Jim. Can I buy koi fish in Greece? I've got no idea, Jim, unfortunately. It's not something I've heard of all that much in Greece. So, yeah, apologies. Just another one I can't add any value to. But again, maybe someone out there in the comments might be able to add to that one. But I'm pretty up on where stuff gets exported to, and Greece isn't one I particularly hear mentioned. So, might have found an opportunity there. So yeah, there we go, folks. I'll just check my list of notes, make sure I've not missed anything. Again, don't forget the video tomorrow night. I think you're going to love that one, 7 o'clock. And yeah, we'll be back here every Wednesday, 7 p.m. For Q&A live, and no more sales events on the channel for a while, or the live stuff anyway. So feel free to get into the WhatsApp group we've got with all the sales going on in there. And yeah, that's it. Covered everything. So thanks to everyone who's tuned in, and I will catch you next week.